Ready?
Hey, how you feeling?
I feel pretty thin.
You look alright though.
I'm running on fumes. I got these weird hair things that I didn't realize my sideburns were this long. They're getting kind of feathery. I think I'm gonna have to trim them. About to go print with Terrence. It's gonna be real fun. We've got 21 hours until the show.
This is
Publico.
This is
Publico.
This is
Publico.
This is
Publico.
I am in motion. I am in motion.
up in Publico.
Paul's original roommate was moving out, so I moved in to Publico. And then I think it was only like a couple of months before Paul started saying that he had had this idea to start some sort of art space.
I had no money at all, and the rent of that, in addition to where my own personal living space rent, was too much. And then just by accident, sort of, I realized that the space that I was living in was on this Final Friday gallery walk. The fact of the matter was that there was an audience already, hopping from gallery to gallery. So just by accident, we sort of started to have shows.
We were there for the first one. I was there for the first one.
What is this we shit?
I feel weird answering for the both of us, so I'm trying to...
All right, yeah. We were both there.
We were both there.
Both of us were there.
What did you guys do at the first few openings?
We stood at the door because, and we wore sweaters.
What is the technical,
Ambassadors.
We were ambassadors.
Because sometimes there were stupid people that would come in and we'd tell them to leave.
Yes, and Publico paid us for our services with Miller High Life 40s.
Why you guys in Cincinnati now?
We came to Publico's last and final show.
There was a point to where we tried to say, where we were thinking about ending the gallery because it was, obviously encroaching on my life. We were talking about possibly ending it at year 4. And then it was like with very little persuading needed to be done to say, let's just do it at year 5 and we'll end it like on our own terms.
Kind of ramp up to this final exhibition that would really cap things off nicely. It's like it would really go out with a bang.
Goodbye.
Publico.
Music. Goodbye.
Publico.
Music. Goodbye.
Publico.
Music. Goodbye.
Publico.
Music.
What's the name of this place again?
And so we had this idea which I really feel like was uniquely ours and was like perfect for the closing, which was have these events, but for each one like you inject some sort of artwork into it. Like so, you know, David Ellis does the stage for the music, and David was no-brainer for like, he was our first pick. I think we got all of our first picks. David, like obviously working with music in his artwork, if you're gonna have an artist make a stage for music show, David's the first pick, especially after working with him. He's a delight to work with. He brought Roberto Lang with him and like made one of the craziest fucking things I've ever seen in my life.
David's energy was like the shot in the arm that the gallery needed to finish, I think. It was like calling in a relief pitcher after a 5-year game.
I met Paul at the CAC because I was in the middle of trying to figure out how to make like objects make beats, and it was in the definite middle of the learning curve, and it's a miracle that show worked. But Paul was on staff and Evan was on staff, and conversation started up, whatever. I heard these guys had a gallery. I didn't know what to expect.
So he sends me this email, it's like 3 weeks before the show, that says, bad news, man, I can't make it. Give me a call. And so like, I'm in the middle of all this other hellish shit. And like if I had a heart attack when I read this email, called him up and basically just told him like, sorry, you have to do this.
I don't even know what you're talking about. When we hit wings, what we need that we don't have are smaller bottles and many of the same. Whereas this is like all about each one kind of being different in pairs. The wings are going to be almost like stripes. It's going to be like a brown row, a green row, you know, a different label row, and then something weird at the top.
Watching the David Ellis bird go up was I guess the closest to a sort of quintessential thing. Simply because the circulating economy of that thing's construction integrates all these parts. Whether it be this sort of satellite experience of talking about of going to the Gypsy Hut and talking to things afterwards, which is a local bar, and all those bottles kind of coming in from there. All the people that worked there were sort of satellite parts of this larger conversation of the whole month. You know, we were there a lot after, sort of talking about it all, working it all out, and they were here and so it was kind of like ideal, sort of not unalienated labor. Like everyone belonged to the project, and the final result was just sort of monstrous, very urban sort of creation. Like it seemed like it belonged in the neighborhood. You know, it made a racket, a very beautiful sort of racket. If you can stick it straight back and like move it forward.
That's great.
Oh my God, the energy was overwhelming. Like I thought it was really great to see that going on and to help with it. But oh man, the guy like that just puts me in this strange place where I'm like so envious of the way he can just execute stuff and just be so ambitious and just be so entertaining and everything all wrapped up at once.
We up in Publico.
What's up? Hustle man, walk in. Hold up.
I met you yesterday.
That's right. This my people's right.
Hey, how you doing?
Look, I told you it's a rock and roll,
Black?
alcoholic bird.
regardless of how fucking terrible you feel, of how much, in David's case, the art isn't working, or however, whatever's happening, you know, or I knew, and I think Paul, you did too, that Friday night it was gonna work, regardless. That 7 o'clock on Friday, whatever it was, even if it was a giant bird made out of liquor bottles, it was gonna fly like a motherfucker.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
To the hip, hop.
Hit it, hit the hop, you don't stop the rock.
To the bang, bang, boogie.
Jump the boogie and the boogie to the boogie beat.
I hear what we hear
It's not a test.
I'm rapping to the beat. I say me, the group. You see, I am one girl, yeah. I get a back to the west, the red, the purple, the yellow.
When you're sick of your body, you gotta trade with somebody. Wouldn't that be nice? When you're bored with your sorrow, I got some you can borrow. When your life's lacking clarity, you give it all up to charity. They should be so lucky. You're a blessing on my soul. Blanket patterns unfold. I'm sick of my body. I wanna trade with somebody. We're starting fires. No one can see. We're writing songs. No one can sing. You got 1,000 eyes people somehow ignore. I'm surrounded by force fields. Only love can break through. I could drop dead tonight with all this shit to do.
Success is when you really feel that you have done something that you didn't do yet. And it could be a slow step. You know, a lot of times it's like a slight improvement. And it could be just the way you work.
Fuck, success was almost like, this shit was like the first time we did this shit was like, even though that shit can come out whichever way it comes out, it's like, I think success is like, you're thinking about the next shit, not like that shit made you think about 3,000.
That shit, exactly.
And then like that next one,
it's true,
keeps making you think about it. So that's.
I think it's like a cancer or a virus, but in a good way. You know, it's like the thing that like starts to grow and like, you know, you're just in for the ride. Artists are really not in control. The best stuff that I feel like I've been a part of, whether it be a collaborator or somebody making it, is hanging out with Dana right there, who's gonna come in and spit a verse. Come in, Dana. It's about improvisation. Just come in and we're gonna wind down with you. I'm serious, dude. You're gonna come in here just off the top of the dome.
I don't have that.
That's all I had to say.
That's my failing.
Kick it.
You're gonna leave me here?
Beatbox for him. No, you don't beatbox.
No, yeah, definitely beatbox.
Can you beatbox? A little bit?
We're gonna.
Let's do it. Just bang it out. Give me the Milwaukee's Best. Is that full?
No.
That's a snare drum.
Oh shit.
You ready?
I'm ready.
We up in Publico.
Standing on the corners, bopping, just bopping some of the hardest you've ever seen. Bopping some of the verses rappers I've ever heard. The dope spot that broke through the murder scene. You know me well from Nightmares of a Lonely Cell. My only happened since Radio Get Veil. Fuck no, where am I? With them double clips. Bust shots, and if you with me, mama run you, and whatnot.
That's it. It's a wrap. Yeah. We're out of here. That's Publico.
It definitely changed, like when the whole collective started up, and then I felt more of like a true member rather than just helping out my boyfriend Paul at the time. So yeah, and I liked it. And it was really fun to actually sit down as a group and actually talk about like what's going on with the gallery.
I had been thinking about this for a while. So at some point we would, invite more like good people and sort of create this collective that would, because there's so many demanding things. So obviously if you have more good people, and why not? If you have more brains, good, creative young brains working on something, then it can be that much better.
Paul, shortly after that, asked if I wanted to join the collective and be a member, and I agreed, since, again, the artists that I like the most in the city were part of it.
After that, I don't know what happened. I think there was a falling out, and then he invited me to be in the club.
Good
but
Publico.
Poetry.
Good
but
Publico.
Poetry.
Good
but
Publico.
Poetry.
Good
but
Publico.
Poetry.
The long-term viability of being an artist in Cincinnati was consecrated by my participation in Publico. I mean, without that, I would have continued to write poetry and continued to have all these sort of active dialogues with poets and other artists nationwide. But the fact of seeing someone face-to-face on a consistent basis, working through these issues all the time at the table, at bars, afterwards, in general social experience, was a tremendous relief.
Dana had all these friends. Occasionally I would be asking them where to read in Cincinnati, and so Dana just started hosting them at Publico, and the first name for the series was Sci Press at Publico, and Sci Press being the press that Dana ran. That kind of naturally fell in. I think probably the first poetry reading we had was probably after we had already started hosting music shows.
I think when somebody's your student for a few years, whether it's 2 or 4 or whatever, that's a long time to get to know somebody and their work, So, and then when students get out, then it's not so abrupt, doesn't feel awkward to see them out or to have a show at their gallery.
A lot of the influence, I think, comes out of faculty members like Keith Benjamin, whose use of sort of humble materials is really, has had a really strong influence on many of the students at the school, and most of the people who I admired who went to the school had been influenced by Keith, and then working with him directly was a pretty great thing.
Just like a general exasperation with the state of things, but charging forth and making what he wants to make, and it's sort of being a byproduct of him being a dad, a very tired dad and teacher. But the fact that he's using all these cracker boxes or cereal boxes that his kids have been eating, it's just really, it's a really perfect form of recycling.
When I was a teenager, even when I was in high school, I used to have this job, and it was sweeping the floors at this bar. My uncle used to own this tavern, and I used to clean up there every morning. So before school, I'd get up and go down there and clean the floors. It's when you're in there, it's a bar, so it's there's a lot of stuff going on there, but when you're in there in the middle of the night, it's totally quiet. And sweeping floors means that it's over, you're cleaning up, and but not just that it's over, but that you're preparing the space again.
I was definitely concerned that they would be able to make, say, we're giving them some sort of like uninteresting maybe objects to make a podium, you know? And but that, you know, the podium is probably my favorite piece from that show.
Keith's install involved a pencil that he stuck in his sculpture, and it was done. So he brought in his sculpture. There was one pencil that held it together. If you took the pencil out, the whole sculpture fell apart, which was amazing.
The podium was kind of funny because the poets, I guess, come to rely on the podium as a lot of things. It's sort of just something to kind of to hit or to grab or to hide behind or something. And it didn't do any of that for them. Like, it was totally see-through. You know, they couldn't hide. Matt, you know, couldn't touch it. He wanted to, he was all worked up, but he'd had to put his hands behind his back so he wouldn't rough it up too much.
A poetry reading there was its own experience. I think that was really great, and it was an experience that worked well because people came with the mindset of coming to an art gallery to hear a poetry reading, and that alters the way you hear a poetry reading.
You never even look down. Fingers are what we have for such acts, and if we do not, we pound. Pound against whatever is at hand until the sound is itself a malleable form, rolled and licked as desired. 2 cups cream, 1 cup sugar, 2 more creams, 1 more sugar. Pound till you like it. Have Jimi Hendrix sex with whoever's back at your place, and on the cold nights of East January, think back to wherever you've been that was warm.
I'm always really interested in live readings because it's so much more exciting to be at a live reading than to sit there and read the poem, I think. It just has that performative aspect to it that's provides you with so much more additional information than what the written words can tell you.
We up in Publico!
The reading itself was really exciting that night.
Hello? Dad, the aphids abandoned my arm. Dad, what should I do? I would chill, son, and drink. Recreational lovemaking inside a project space, dusted, in theory and fact. Yet later, the aphids have gone, and the goddamn garden goes on with the imporous posture of some politician. I come to this altarpiece, clear-eyed and mean, from deep in the mind of a parasite, teasing your dad for his ambulant log, derivé in reverse, a real Sasquatch without any frothing, pulling, teething in the mouth. It's only the North Pole, honey. It's only this summerless agony. How will we remember? How will I remember this? I cried again in school today. They asked me my feelings for Polaroid pictures. For me, they're Victorian things. Fairy tale mice with a sun-ruined Cheshire life, gutted color wheel light for their unstable sign. I saw their tombs in the dawn, basically cradle with all of its blisters intact. Beckons like bubble wrap. Pop the encasements of that, and the honeydew pours out in torrents of pixels. Floriated like love's will and asphodel, nothing to drink, and what's now just decor. Sutter home, here in your Venice, the many-canaled, hollowed-out neural city, lasciviously broken, sobriety comes down like the churchyard nativity, piece by delirious piece, until there is goose flesh all over the Virgin. I feel it too, in the end of the song, and the lights coming up at last call, that panic. Thanks.
I had some fairly rigorous ideas about what I thought it meant to do art and be public with art, some of which still obtain for me and are still meaningful, others of which, in fact, productively were altered and changed by participating with these people.
A gallery where exhibitions developed out of conversations with the people involved, with the members of the collaborative, where the concepts and themes for exhibitions all came out of these meetings and discussions, which began with the first meeting and never really, we never really veered from that.
You get, 8 really smart people in a room and just start fucking around, basically, was what happened more often than not. And then those ideas just come out.
It was just about how we could all suggest different ways to have good shows or make the space look better, or should we move the refrigerator over there and get it out of the way and build a wall here?
I think most of the show ideas just came out of one person's idea, and they would bring it up and everyone would say, yeah, that's pretty cool. And I don't know, probably my favorite part has been the naming process of shows, because it's usually where the most ridiculous ideas come out. I feel like personally I've always tried to keep a syllable limit on the words in our titles because I hate show titles that have subsequent manifestations or things like
fade to black, fade to black, fade to black, fade to black.
We're beginning to talk about expanding what it was to run a space in a gallery and what you could do there. So we started showing more films there.
The 2 video shows we did, or that went on there, 1 or 2.
Yeah.
That's even though we didn't do too many, we didn't do very many. It's still I don't know. I saw that as an integral part.
And these guys asked me to do a project that involved the screen, and I didn't want to just create sort of a frame around the screen as sort of the sculpture object that was static. So I came up with something that would sort of have a presence throughout the whole screening. So at the beginning, when people are being seated, all the way through the end when people are leaving. And I wanted to sort of have a performative, sort of theatrical presence as well as a sculptural. It could still stand as a sculpture. So I was trying to straddle those lines: performance theater, static object, installation.
Tony's was the weirdest one. It's where the video is projected, but somehow that's a sculpture too. And man, he came up with this beautiful solution to where in between, interludes like David did with the musical component, in between that the screen was lifted up to reveal these beautiful prisms hanging, and there were hundreds of them hanging, and they would pick up the projector light, and then at the top of the prisms was these blue curly cute things called glow wire that glowed, I guess, this low kind of wattage that was blue, and they looked like clouds hanging above. So it was kind of like this crazy light, like rain made of light almost.
On top of that was a projection, live projection for the screening of champagne cups that were filled with water that were being moved and vibrated by a drummer playing on a platform, which was them sort of activating the screen, activating light on these crystals. And so that would sort of be the intermission segue, and then the screen would come back down for the second part of the program. And so I was just kind of trying to think of it as a way of keeping the whole event energetic.
We up in Publico.
Soldier, may fortune be with you.
by the end, we were like working full steam, and we like people sort of found their way into these positions.
I decided to start curating all of the spreads, kind of to thematically go with the shows, which I always thought was maybe a little silly, but at the same time I was really excited by it. So, and everybody else always seemed excited by it because it's like such a instant gratification. When you come in and you can just like gravitate to that food table and then like just move on to all the art after that. So I didn't envision that to begin with, except I always liked doing that sort of thing, like putting together vegetable trays and assembling meat. So
the
supper,
the
supper,
the
supper,
the
supper.
So then after that was Sim Park for the banquet table, Sim Park and Chris Voorhees. Chris Voorhees frequently collaborates with Sim Park. Sim Park is short for Simple Architecture. Based on their work before, they were the obvious choice when asking them to do this table that was going to kind of round out the rest of the things. We already had 3 objects in there. Kind of knowing they would do something crazy because they're amazing craftsmen.
Minute ago, we up in Publico.
So we just, had a few meetings and decided, this is what we wanted to do, make this kind of shape, and how can we make it, and what materials out of, So we also, looking at your space at Publico, notice how, like, typically, people flow through the space, and given what we knew about what was going to go on that evening, how can we accommodate, the space and the food and people without, like, making something that, just like was an interjection.
I think on one level we were connecting the food ritual at an opening to the art ritual, which is so clearly defined by your white sections of wall. And that sort of afforded us the excuse to put this absurd sort of jog in this table that was literally sort of connecting those two spaces. Mm-hmm. And then because of the flow of the space, it became practical that we had to put that arch in it so people could move through the space.
I came into the gallery and everything was like pumping at full force. Everybody was like rushing around, doing last minute things, setting the big Sim Park banquet table.
I really had fun, I guess, curating that one because, I don't know, I was trying to think about visual elegance, like what speaks of elegance, black and white and crystal, and even though everything was really cheap and from the thrift store as usual, but it's usually all about trying to lift things up from their humble roots.
It was amazing. It was like really like over the top. I thought I was blown away by the whole presentation of it. I was like, I couldn't believe how much food and how awesome it looked there on the table. I was like, took it to the next level for sure.
Yeah, we never made it to be an empty table. It was sort of made for that, anticipating that event and what that event could be, and it didn't disappoint at all. Like, I couldn't believe it was that. Ollie's trolley and
plus anything that doesn't look like a hamburger, I don't really recognize it. So I'm like, wow, that's food. It's beautiful.
I think that the idea of alternative spaces and converting domestic spaces into performance spaces, whether it be at a house for a poetry reading, at a house for an art show, or establishing any of these kind of things, is the ideal way to be public in making art in this country.
One of the major things that I've realized now in hindsight that it's over is that at some point it changed from I had a gallery in my apartment to like I live in a gallery. Yeah, I had a room off the side of an art gallery.
You know, sometimes we would put up a show and I really liked it when, for the reception when it was first up. But then in living with it for a month or two, it just started to get on my nerves, and I started to I was thinking about it so much that I started to find things that I wasn't as into, and I wound up not liking the show as much. And of course, then the opposite is true also. It's like, what would it be like to, like any other gallery that you visit that you like? It's interesting to consider, like, what would it be like if you had to be there every day, kind of like in the space, living with the artwork.
Publico.
2003.
2008.
And
Publico.
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 How many do we need? There you go.
The culmination was the visual art show on Final Friday. We had this idea that we'd do like this inside out thing of like bring in some of these great over the Rhine images because the neighborhood was so important to us that we bring in some of this imagery inside, so it'd be like almost like reversal,
That's right. What do you think, Rankins? Good, man.
There you go.
Yeah.
You might know my name, right? And not know my face. I've been in situations like that. People just sitting there talking about rankings. I'm sitting right there. They don't even know what's big.
This very great Cincinnati artist who has a lot of work in public view and over the Rhine named Rankins. He was a very sweet man, very sweet.
And he paints all these murals around, and they had always, there's this one of just RoboCop on Vine Street. And I always looked at these, like always wondering who was doing these.
So Marvin had something to do with that building. And he was like, well, can we put a full-scale policeman right there, man, so he can police the neighborhood? I'm like, it's not gonna work, Marvin. It's not gonna work. Because the next day, they're gonna throw paint on him, write stuff on it, it ain't gonna work. So that's how we came up with the I said, we put RoboCop up there. You should have seen the look on his face though, man. When I told him that, he looked at me like, how you think of, something like that? Because it's a cop, and I figured he don't have no race. You know what I'm saying?
Except for
everybody can, right, everybody can familiarize with him. He's cool with everybody.
Yeah.
He's been up there, man, for 10 years, I bet you. But I made him black on here, though, see? So am I supposed to, what am I supposed to do? Leave him like he is, or?
One party always thinks like people are just coming for a party, but then the other part sort of thinks like people are actually, people were actually into what we were doing, and for people to be that into what we were doing for that show was, the most rewarding.
Started at the end of the night for Publico, that's when it sort of felt like we had finished the month of shows.
We up in Publico!
night too, and there wasn't even a band. And I crowd surfed during the party. It was fantastic.
The whole final show, like that was like, I think that was like one of the biggest rushes that we had.
And I kind of hope that some people did think we were showing off because, you know, a little swag in there would have never been bad. You know?
One of my most distinct memories from that night, though, is during Publico. It was so packed in there and so sweaty. This is in January, you know, like so foggy. This is like a dream state. Like walking through the middle of the crowd, like, you know, like club style, walking, like inching through a crowd and like literally stopping in the middle of the dance floor and like looking above my bedroom and bathroom doors and like seeing these murals by Rankins glowing under the black light. And I just stopped there and I was like almost confused. Like, where am I? What happened?
We never stopped doing what we needed to do to get the show done. And that certainly was the case last month and probably amped up to another, however.
It could have appeared again as like from everything from being a total astonishing success to a wild, self-indulgent orgy. You know what I mean? Like depending on your perspective and your cynicism and your personal sort of feelings about what Publico was.
Publico is awesome, man.
It was like a pressure cooker or something, and there were so many people involved. It made it easier for like the network to just like be effortless, you know? Like if we're all hanging out and discussing art and putting on art shows, it's like it all just happens like magic.
Sometimes we just hung out, which was fun too, but it was really hot or cold there.
So fucking cold in here, man.
I was more into like making a show and making a show with a bunch of people that I'm close with because I want to see a good show.
If you're gonna get it done, don't sit around and wait for someone else to write you a check to make it happen. Get it done. And if you're getting it done enough, other cats who want to get it done jump on board because they know it can happen. And that's what Publico is to me. Some cats get it done and got it done for 5 years, man. And now it's time to close the curtain and say, we did something.
It's interesting because you're getting better and better at running a gallery, only to stop running a gallery.
Manhattan will take you, but let it be in Ohio. Manhattan will take you.
We up in Publico.